Fox Sports.
We are Baltimore. We are Ohio.
A familiar face returns to Great American Ballpark tonight. Fresh off a World Series title, Johnny Baseball is trying to do the same with the Giants. But tonight, his emotions will be running high as he faces the team that originally signed him. It has been an overcast day here in Cincinnati, but there's no rain in the forecast. The Reds are awfully glad to be back home. Tonight, the start of a 10-game homestand, and it begins with the San Francisco Giants. And it's all right here on Fox Sports Ohio. And hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Cincinnati Reds baseball. Along with Chris Welsh and Jim Day, I'm Jim Kelch. Great to have you with us tonight for Game 1 of this 3-game series. It is the Giants and the Reds, Chris, and that's certainly a storyline. But the biggest storyline by far this game is the return of Johnny Cueto.
Well, there are a lot of people waiting to see Johnny Cueto. A lot of people didn't expect to see Johnny Cueto come back in a Giants uniform. But I can tell you, the Giants and Giants fans are just more than pleased with what they've gotten out of this young man so far. He signed a 6-year deal to stay with the Giants until 2022. So get used to seeing him in that San Francisco garb. He's a guy that, at Great American Ballpark, the numbers that he has put up are really phenomenal. An earned run average under 3 at a ballpark that is generally known as a hitter's paradise. That's something that is going to be very tough to duplicate for any Red going down the line.
And he had a very good outing his last time out against San Diego. In fact, he struck out 11 in this victory over the Padres.
Yeah, a 1-0 win is more than a very good outing. It is a dominating performance. Every time he was tested, he was able to keep his cool, pitch out of some tough situations, and get the win. And that's what really Johnny Cueto has been all about. But his mound counterpart tonight, Brandon Finnegan, also coming off an outstanding outing. That was at Citi Field in New York, when he went 6 shutout innings against the Mets before Yoenis Cespedes broke it all up with a 3-run home run. But Finnegan is up to the task tonight. He knows what's at stake. He knows there are a lot of people out there in Cincinnati that love Johnny Cueto. But Finnegan is one of the key parts the Reds got in return in that deal with the Kansas City Royals. Hopefully he'll have a good showing tonight.
How about the irony of it all? Johnny Cueto against Brandon Finnegan. As Chris mentioned, they were traded for one another last July, right before the trading deadline. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, Jim Day talks about Billy Hamilton back in the leadoff spot tonight.
and by Skyline Chili. Feeling good? It's Skyline time.
The Reds are going against their old ace Johnny Cueto tonight at the ballpark, and it's going to be cool and cloudy. A stray shower can't be ruled out, but I think most of the game will be just okay. Temperatures will be around 63 by the first pitch. By the end of the game, hopefully we are up against the Giants. We'll be in those upper 50s. Let's go Reds.
I'm Jim Day on the field. Zach Kozar left yesterday's game, tendonitis in that surgically repaired knee. They're giving him the night off, at least in the starting lineup. So it's Billy Hamilton back to the top of the lineup. He's the one to turn to, not only because he's done it in the past, but his bat coming around a little bit on the road trip. 333 average, a double, scored 4 runs, and stole 3 bases. Particularly hitting the ball well from the right-handed side, in which he will hit left-handed tonight against the right-handed throwing Johnny Cueto. But nonetheless, he loves to face San Francisco. Giant improvement here. Look at the average in 12 games, 356. That's the best against any opponent. 4 doubles, 7 runs driven in, and he's stolen 6 bases. When Billy's on base, wreaking havoc, the Reds are usually a very good offensive club. They'll have to do it against an old friend. Johnny Cueto returns to Cincinnati. Reds and Giants on deck. Jim Kelch and Chris Welsh with the call next.
Giants tonight, led by, of course, that man, Bruce Bochy. In his 10th year at the helm of the Giants, he has 3 World Series championships under his belt. Take a look now at the starting lineup for the San Francisco Giants team tonight. Denard Span, the former National, will lead things off. Matt Duffy, Buster Posey, the top 3. Then Hunter Pence, Brandon Belt, just up from AAA. Mac Williamson gets the start out in left field tonight for San Francisco. Bottom 3 includes Brandon Crawford at short, Kelby Tomlinson at second base, and Johnny Cueto on the mound. There's the left-hander, 23-year-old Brandon Finnegan on the hill tonight for Cincinnati.
You know, Brandon Finnegan takes the mound tonight, and I'm sure he's thinking everybody in this ballpark, everybody watching on TV, all they're thinking about is Johnny Cueto. I'm going to come in here under the radar, and I'm going to be the guy that people will be talking about after this ball game. That's the kind of mindset that Finnegan has. That's the kind of belief that he has in himself and his stuff. I expect a good outing out of Finnegan tonight. I really do. Coming off an outstanding work against the Mets his last time out. He gets that fastball down in the zone, and he'll be one tough hombre.
He's ready to go. So is Denard Span, the Giants center fielder. And this game on Monday, May the 2nd, underway from Great American Ballpark. Time temperature 63 degrees. Span at 245 with a home run, and he's driven in a dozen. Span, then Matt Duffy, then Buster Posey, the top three in this San Francisco lineup. This is the back end of a 6-game road trip for them. They went to New York, lost the first 2, finally did win yesterday behind Madison Bumgarner 6-1 over the Mets, and in doing so beat Noah Syndergaard to left field, and that ball caught out there by Scott Schebler, and a good start for Brandon Finnegan. Take a look at the defense of the Reds, brought to you by your Ford dealers. Schebler, the offensive hero in the game, not once but twice yesterday, is out and left. Hamilton in center, Bruce in right. Suarez, DeJesus, Phillips and Votto across the infield. Finnegan and Barnhart, your battery tonight. Here's Matt Duffy, the third baseman. This Giants team last year started the season with Casey McGee over at third, but he did not hit at all. They moved in Matt Duffy, and all he did was end up second in National League Rookie of the Year voting in 2015.
He really wasn't even expected to make the team, and because they expected other guys to come up and perform. But Duffy has just shown himself to be just a really solid ball player. He does all the little things that managers love, and the fact that he had one sensational rookie year, you see right there, nearly batting 300.
Only 25 years old.
Hey, the one thing that the Giants do, they're going to remind you of the Pirates, they're going to remind you of the Cubs, and even the Mets in this regard. Those are the teams that are ahead of them in patience at the plate. They really make a pitcher work.
Duffy to the left side. Nice backhanded pick by DeJesus, and Votto stretches to his right to make the play. Put a star by that one for Ivan DeJesus Jr.
I think for a while there, Ivan wasn't sure whether he was going to field this ball or maybe Suarez was going to cut in front of him. But Suarez evidently decided he couldn't get to it, so he had to field the backhand hop right there, the short one, and then throw off balance. That's a dandy play.
Finnegan very impressed with that. He points to DeJesus, who's getting the start at shortstop tonight with Zach Cozart out. He took the place of Cozart in the lineup late in the game yesterday in Pittsburgh. Cozart left, which was diagnosed later as tendonitis in his knee. Base in the left by Posey. And they list Cozart today as day to day. Posey, who ended up 4th in the National League in hitting a year ago, comes into this game at 284. This is the first base runner of this one. And now is Hunter Pence. Been swinging a hot bat as of late, Pence. Well, if you're a Reds fan, you remember him in 2012 getting that Giants team all jazzed up in the dugout. His name today is the National League's Player of the Week for this past week. He had a very good week, hitting .421 with a couple of home runs, 10 runs batted in 6 games. First meeting of the year between these two teams in 2016. Out in front of that one 1 ball 2 strikes.
You know, watching Hunter Pence over all these years, he's really an interesting guy to watch because he can have some of the worst swings you'll ever see a major leaguer take, and then in the same at bat he'll hit a pitcher's pitch a long way the opposite field. You just really he's unpredictable, and that's the one thing that makes him very dangerous.
Got him to chase. He didn't get it. A strikeout of Pence by Finnegan, and a 0 on the board in the top of the first for the Giants. Now Johnny Cueto to the mound here in Cincinnati. Hamilton, where he has been so familiar, particularly last year. Back to the leadoff spot today. Ivan DeJesus Jr. and Joey Votto, the top three. Then it's Phillips, Bruce, and Suarez. Schebler in left field tonight. Barnard catching, and Finnegan pitching. On the mound, there he is. 30-year-old Johnny Cueto, former All-Star with Cincinnati, former 20-game winner with the Reds. Last time out, we talked about that victory against San Diego. It was his 100th career win. He's 171, and this is 9th year in the big leagues. Hamilton takes strike one. Gotta believe that a lot of these Reds players who played behind Cueto for so many years are anxious to see what it's like to stand in against Cueto.
Well, they've seen him so much from behind, and they've seen him in very small sample sizes, say in an inter squad game in spring training. But that's nothing at all like seeing him for the duration of a ball game.
How about Cueto getting a standing ovation from the crowd tonight when he took the mound?
Well, he got a smattering of applause as he was walking back from the visitor bullpen in front of the diamond seats. A lot of people standing to give him a hand.
Heck of a pick right there by Brandon Crawford, and Hamilton, who had a nice road trip, hits the ball hard, but out to start the Reds first. Take a look at that San Francisco defense, brought to you by your Ford dealers. They line up like this. Williamson, just up from AAA Sacramento, gets the start in left. Span in center, Pence in right. Duffy, Crawford, Tomlinson, Belt across the infield. Cueto and Posey form the battery for Bruce Bochy's team.
Yeah, they've got a couple of guys who are out of the lineup who have been really contributing a lot to them. Joe Panik at second base and Angel Pagan the other one.
Pagan left the game yesterday in New York in the 7th with a left hamstring strain, and Panik misses his 3rd straight game tonight with a right groin tightness. Ivan DeJesus Jr. at 125 with a home run, driven in 4. 0 for 2 after taking over for Cozart yesterday.
The shimmy. You know, if you're batting against Johnny Cueto, you're trying to find his release point, and then he does this on you. And it has a tendency to distract. And then for the second time in 2 batters, he quickens his windup and tries to slip one by you when you're not ready. He did that to Billy Hamilton. That's the one Hamilton put into play on the line to the shortstop. He's just a rare breed of pitcher that has an understanding of what it's like to get a hitter off balance and has the stuff to back it up.
Hard hit by DeJesus and out into left field, and that's a base hit for Cincinnati. And so Ivan DeJesus Jr., who's had a tough start to this 2016 season, gets the honor of getting the hit against Johnny Baseball.
Hit well by DeJesus on a low fastball right there. He comes busting it out of the box pretty good. Now, this is not their normal left fielder out there in Mac Williamson. I'm not sure how good of a defender he is, but he got to it fairly quickly and got that ball back in the infield.
Now here's the matchup, though, that you kind of wanted to see it. Cueto versus Votto. Of course, they've never faced one another, other than, as Chris mentioned, in a possible inter-squad game early in spring.
Is he going to give Votto the rocking chair or the shimmy? Neither, with the runner on first base.
Right.
But you can pretty much shut down the running game right now with Johnny Cueto on. Again, he's having one of those years where they've had more runners thrown out than he has had successful stolen bases.
He's allowed one this year. He allowed 3 stolen bases last year. And we always harken back to that 2012 season when he allowed 1 for the entire season. And that was a back end of a double steal.
It was.
Cueto this year, 5 starts, 4-1, 2.65 ERAs, just out of the top 10 in earned run average. 4 of his 5 starts, quality starts. Now 2-2. Boy, he had a couple of big playoff victories. Kansas City last year, won in the division series against Houston, and then of course that Game 2 World Series win against the Mets. Both of them complete games. Both of them desperately needed at the time for his Royals team.
You know, the games that he pitched in the postseason were the signature games for Johnny Cueto, because what he did for the Royals in the regular season after the Reds traded him there at the deadline was not very much at all. In fact, he didn't nearly live up to the billing that accompanied him. The Royals gave up an awful lot in order to get Cueto for half a year, but what he did in the postseason, it all made everybody happy there in Kansas City.
Talked about these guys, these Reds hitters facing Cueto. Here's what Joey Votto had to say about him.
Johnny, he's a real piece of work in a good way, and it'll be fun competing against him. He's in a different uniform, so I mean, status quo when it comes to that, but we had really good memories together, and it was really fun playing with a guy, not only as a man, but you know, he was such a great player and such a great competitor.
Well, round 1 of that confrontation goes to Cueto. He gets him on strikes.
And don't be surprised by that. And it's no knock on Joey Votto. It's a well-known fact. One of the oldest mottos in baseball is good pitching will stop good hitting.
2 out. Here now is Brandon Phillips.
This is actually the matchup that I'm more interested in than the Votto-Cueto matchup.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Brandon taking all the way there. Now, why is that?
Even though Votto came up through the minor leagues and played some minor league baseball with Johnny Cueto, I think that the way that Phillips and Cueto used to, you know, draw back and forth a little bit in fun and have it just like good teammates do, this is what I like to see. Brandon's a guy that can get himself up for this game like this.
Now he finds himself quickly in the hole, 0-2.
And the Reds could use a win. I mean, there was a big win yesterday that they came out of Pittsburgh with. They looked like they had it won, then they had it lost, then they had it tied, then they had it won again. that was emotionally big for this ball club. You got to have something that kind of bring this team together, and beating a pitcher the caliber of Cueto could help along that way.
Well, that victory by the Reds yesterday, they had given the lead away 3 different times, finally got the victory in 11, kept them a half game ahead of Milwaukee in the Central, 10-15, Milwaukee 9-15. Snapped that 6-game losing streak. Brandon with a home run. He's driven in 7. Duffy down the line, and the long throw across is in time. Phillips is out, and the Reds, like the Giants, leave a runner in the first. The most strikeouts by a Red since 1970 in his first 5 career starts. Johnny Cueto at the top with 31. Brandon Finnegan at 29. He did that last year and then into this year. Others on that list: Tony Cingrani at 37. John Lamb 33. John Lamb, speaking of the left-hander, rehabbing, trying to get his way back up here to Cincinnati, was scheduled to start tonight in Louisville. Lamb was scratched from that start, as was Ramon Cabrera, the catcher, and we found out just a little while ago then that Cabrera is now here with this team because Devin Mesoraco has been placed on the disabled list. Torn labrum in his left shoulder. And that is anything but good news for this Cincinnati club. Boy, he's had a tough go of it, hasn't he?
He really has. He can't catch a break anywhere along the line when it comes to physical ailments. And you know, coming back from the hip surgery was going to be a big undertaking. He worked hard to do that. They gave enough time. He felt like going through all spring training, he just started to feel like he was turning the corner. And then you have this issue prop up, and it's tough. And it also leaves the Reds in a very thin area because they don't have a lot of catching coming up into minor leagues, at least not at the AA or AAA level that you could say is, you know, these catchers are, you know, a few months away from being big leaguers. That's not the case. Catching is a very tough commodity to find nowadays.
They mentioned they call up Ramon Cabrera, who'd been playing down in Louisville, who made his big league debut in September last year and did a nice job with the Reds in 13 games. And they also, let's not forget, have Jordan Pacheco on this team. While we haven't seen him catch this year thus far, he is a catcher. Probably will see time behind the plate this year. Brandon Belt hitting .289 with 3 home runs. He's driven in 18. Belt very early in this season signed a 6-year contract with the Giants that'll keep him here through 2021.
You know, the Giants have made commitments to just about everybody that they need to in the infield. They're going to keep everybody around. Brandon Belt, you mentioned, has a long-term deal. Buster Posey's not going anywhere. He's on a long-term deal. Matt Duffy's a young player still. They've got him under control for several years. Same way with Joe Panik at second base, and they've got Brandon Crawford wrapped up on a long-term deal. So this infield, like it or not, the Giants are going to be with for the next foreseeable future. And it's a nice infield. Brandon Belt, very underrated player overall.
Pretty good lead over there at first, held by Votto, and batter now is Mac Williamson, young man that was just called up from AAA Sacramento today. And as Chris mentioned, Angel Pagan left the game yesterday with a left hamstring strain out in New York.
Well, Mac Williamson came into camp this year with the Giants, and he just had a tremendous first half of spring training. I mean, every fastball he saw, I mean, he hit it about 500 feet. Immense power. 3rd round pick by the Giants out of Wake Forest in 2012.
Well, he turns on that ball, lashes it foul down the line.
That's bat speed right there. Now, it doesn't mean you're automatically going to be a good hitter, but it certainly is something that you look for when you're drafting an amateur player. What kind of bat speed do you have? He's a big guy, 6 feet 4 inches tall, over 240 pounds.
In the minor leagues, he's right near, not over, but right near a 300 hitter. Gotten off to a tremendous start at AAA this year. He was hit by the pitch. Came in on him. Williamson plucked by that pitch. The Giants get the first 2 on here in the second.
Tough guy, too. Didn't even flinch. This ball looks like it got him right on the kneecap. All he does is take his helmet off and lay it on the ground.
Finnegan hits his 2nd batter of the year. First scoring threat of this game goes to the Giants. 2 on with nobody out for Brandon Crawford. Mentioned earlier that Finnegan, of course, has not faced the Giants in the regular season, but he did face them in the World Series 2 years ago as a member of the Kansas City Royals, the year he was drafted. That will be a foul ball. He pitched in both Game 3, did Finnegan, and Game 4 of the World Series. In Game 4, faced Crawford. Crawford had a single against him. That's the year that, of course, Finnegan became the first pitcher to pitch in both the College World Series and the Major League World Series in the same year.
Crawford, another one of those infielders, a key piece to the Giants team that they have signed until 2021. An excellent defender, waiting for his bat to come around. Finnegan right now struggling with that off-speed pitch, and that's a pitch that you bounce in the dirt. You know, he wants to, you know, that could have been the changeup right there. It could have been the slider. But what happens is that you tell yourself, all right, I got a couple of runners on base. I'm not going to hang this pitch, so I'm really going to finish it. I'm going to get out there. I'm really going to pull it down. And when you do that too aggressively, you bounce it in front of home plate. Better there than right down the middle.
Schebler has a beat on this ball, and that's the first out here in the top of the second. Well, you talk about that pitch in the dirt, Chris, and I don't guess there's a better guy to have behind the plate in blocking those than Barnhart. He was, I mean, yesterday he must have blocked 10 like that.
That's what he takes pride in. I mean, he really does throughout his whole minor league career, when he was once named the Gold Glove receiver of all the catchers in the minor leagues, not just one level, but all of them together. He was the best defensive catcher out there, and he's learned the right way to do it. Where the Reds have taught him right.
So now the batter is Kelby Tomlinson. He is filling in for Joe Panik at second base. We mentioned Panik is missing his third straight game with a right groin tightness issue. Tomlinson at 154. To right field. That'll flare in for a hit. Roberto Kelly, the third base coach of the Giants, will hold the runner Belt coming around third. And so San Francisco, with a walk, a hit batsman, and a hit, have loaded him up here in the second.
Wow, I'm a little surprised they're going to hold him right here, because you've got the number 9 hitter coming up. Jay Bruce had a long time before he got to that baseball. And I don't know whether Kelly thought that Bruce had gotten it earlier than he really did. But now Johnny Cueto comes to the plate for the first time as a visiting player with the bases loaded.
How about that? Remember, it was Cueto at the end of the 2014 season gunning for his 20th win against the Pirates the last day of the year. He came up in a situation where he needed a hit. There's a bouncing ball to the right side, off the glove of Votto, into right. 1 run will score. 2nd run will score. Giants have taken a 2-0 lead on a ball slapped to the right side by Johnny Cueto.
Yucking it up down there with first base coach Bill Hayes. He just tries to put the bat on the ball, and he does. And it went right by Joey Votto. Looked like it went right under his glove, and then it eluded Brandon Phillips. That's a catchable ball.
It'll be ruled as a base hit. 2 RBIs for Cueto. Belt and Williamson score. Tomlinson moves all the way over to third. Only the 2nd hit of the year for Cueto, who came in as a 106 career hitter. It's his hit. Gives the Giants the early lead. Top of the order now, and Span to the second baseman. They'll get an out, and safe at first. So a run scores. Tomlinson crosses the plate, and it has been a 3-run second for the Giants.
Well, the speed of Span kept that double play from happening right there, and enabled the 3rd run to score by turning it into a fielder's choice. Cueto eliminated at second. But he'll go into that dugout and get a whole bunch of high fives for driving in a couple of runs with his first at bat here at Great American Ballpark as a Giant.
The Giants take advantage of the leadoff walk and then the hit batsman of Mac Williamson. 2-run single by Cueto, ground out by Span. Well, Span's an interesting story, isn't he? Because he missed most of last year with all sorts of injuries in Washington, and yet the Giants signed him. Not only do they sign him, they sign him to a 3-year deal. Surgery last April, right core muscle surgery. Later went on the DL with back tightness. Still a 3rd time went on the DL with left hip inflammation. Played in only 61 games for the Nationals a year ago. Giants bring him over here. He bumps Angel Pagan over to left field.
The Giants at the time when they were looking for a fleet-footed outfielder also were looking at Dexter Fowler. And they ended up signing Span in January. They had no idea that the deal with Fowler and the Orioles would fall apart, and that he would take a whole lot less money to come to a different team. So it turned out he goes back to the Cubs.
That's worked out pretty well for him.
It certainly has. He's been the hottest player on the planet here at least the first month of the season. Time for Finnegan to get out of this inning. Don't want to run that pitch count up too much. Reds bullpen is already beleaguered.
Keep our eye on that big series tonight in Pittsburgh. The Cubs and the Pirates getting together for the first time this year.
And the other part of it right here for Finnegan is that you want to pitch to this guy. I mean, Buster Posey's on deck. It's only a 3-run game right now. You do not want to walk Duffy and then have to face Posey with a couple of runners on base.
Span on the move, and that's ball 4. So that's the second walk of the inning issued by Finnegan. 8th man to bat in the frame will come up in Buster Posey. Here comes Mark Riggins out of the dugout, pitching coach to the mound. 26 pitches in this inning, 38 now in the game.
Just trying to give him a breather right here, you know, and maybe correct any negative thoughts that you have going through your mind. It could be that, you know, he's thinking, now I'm getting nickel and dime to death. I throw a pitch off the plate and I hit a batter. A ball goes under an infielder's glove. You know, woe is me. You got to snap out of that if that's where your head is. And sometimes a pitching coach trip out there can help you do that.
Posey this year hitting only 167 with runners in scoring position, but that has not been the case for the Giants. They've been very good in that department. Out in front of it and a long foul.
Posey looking fastball, getting changeup, and got it so far out in the end he cracked his bat.
Duffy over at first. Span leads away at second. 3 in, 2 out here in the second inning. Posey last year ended up 4th in the National League and hitting at .318. It's the highest he has hit since he won the batting title back in 2012. That one is low, and now it's 2-2, and that's 30 pitches now in this inning for Finnegan. He threw 107 his last time out, 6 1/3 in New York. goes. He chased that one, strikes out, putting an end to the top of the second. But 3 across the board for San Francisco. Of the night is the former Red Johnny Cueto. Look at these Reds ranks since 1914. 4th in opponent's average, 6th in ERA at 3.21. Boy, you look at the numbers that he put up last year with Cincinnati. 262. Chris talked about when he went over to Kansas City, not nearly that good. 14.225, 13.282. He had 5 consecutive years while pitching here in Cincinnati with an ERA of under 3. Bruce leads it off here in the bottom of the second.
Yeah, you really wonder how good Johnny Cueto could have been had he not been injured along the way. He missed a lot of time with a variety of different injuries, especially when he was a young pitcher. So the Reds saw the best of him, there's no doubt, but he really didn't become a stud pitcher in the league until 2012 when he won 19 games. But then after he did all that in 2012, 217 innings, won 19 games, the next year in 2013, he was injured, and he only toiled out there for 60 innings. It was the year after that that he really set the National League pace in a lot of different categories.
Jans Bruce here, and he bounces out softly to first.
But even with all the injuries, when you start comparing Cueto with the best of the best, say from 2011 until now, I mean, he is in really rarefied air, because there's only one pitcher in baseball in the National League that has had a lower earned run average between 2011 and now, and that would be Clayton Kershaw.
It was Kershaw, of course, who beat Cueto out for the Cy Young back in 14. Johnny finished second that year. He also finished 4th in Cy Young voting in 2012. That was the year that R.A. Dickey of the Mets won the National League Cy Young.
You know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I have not seen Johnny Cueto speed up his windup and throw any other pitch besides a fastball.
No, I think you're right.
At least in this ball game. And I know that there are scouts who are doing studies on this and all, but he did it again. So, I mean, so if he stays in this rhythm, at least he's giving up a little something to you if you've been paying attention. There's a breaking ball, but that was kind of a weird little.
Looked like he
speed
stumbled,
up.
didn't it?
Yeah. Looked like he wanted to do the rocking chair and then forgot he wasn't in a position to do it.
They get Suarez on strike. Second strikeout for Cueto.
Well, what's come with Johnny nowadays is that he knows his delivery, his arm feels good, and he can pinpoint his fastball. I mean, you see the radar gun readings at 91 miles an hour. It used to be that Johnny Cueto was at his best when he was throwing 94 and 95. But now he's at his best when he takes the ball and he can command the strike zone with a 91-mile-an-hour fastball, which he has found is plenty hard enough.
If he has the location, which he's had.
Correct.
He is now with Schebler with 2 men out. Schebler, of course, a big day yesterday. Coming off the bench, he had the RBI double in the 9th inning to give the Reds the lead, and ultimately then the RBI double in the 11th inning to give the Reds the win. Welcome for him because he had really been struggling. There's the quick pitch again. Schebler had been 1 for his last 17, 2 for his last 34 going into yesterday before he had those 2 big doubles in the 9th and again in the 11th. In the dirt, and a swing and a miss, and down go the Reds in order in the bottom of the 2nd. Storylines presented by Elk and Elk. Reds best records versus National League opponents since 2011. The Giants right on top of the list. Reds 22-13 against San Francisco in that time span. They're the Cubs. You see, they played very well against the Cubs really until last year, 55-43. But the Giants topped the list. You know, the Giants did win the season series last year. 3-0 San Francisco into the 3rd. Penn struck out to end the first, his first time. .22 runs batted in for Pence. That's 5th in the National League coming into tonight's game. Belt on deck. Foul tip hung on to by Barnhart. Strikeout number 3 recorded for Finnegan.
Just going right up the ladder on a guy that is normally a pretty good fastball hitter and getting it in there just enough. Hunter Pence is late.
Here now is Brandon Belt. It was his walk by Finnegan that started that 3-run second inning. You talk about Belt signing the long-term contract. He earned the faith of the Giants with his best career year last year when he hit 280 with 18 home runs, drove in 68. Of course, this is a even year. Look back over the last 5 years, the Giants in even years take home the World Series title. Schebler and Hamilton chasing this ball near the wall. Billy jumped up, had it. Oh, and it came out of the glove. And that's going to be a double and now a triple for Brandon Belt as he is in the third. Boy, oh boy, did Billy come close to making another spectacular catch.
Well, it was a spectacular effort for Billy. He got up there on that wall and tried to hang up there just long enough to be able to get that ball in his glove and secured. And it never did get into his glove, just off the top of the webbing. Well, he was way up there.
Heck of an effort by Billy Hamilton. You remember he made that over the wall catch in St. Louis. First road trip of the year. Almost had a spectacular one again right there. Second triple of the year for Belt. Now here the Giants are forcing the Reds to bring their infield in. Runner at third base and 1 out. Jesus looks the runner back, 2 out. Make sure you're tuned in tomorrow night for a special offer on Reds tickets from Fox Sports Ohio. It'll be another great offer you won't want to miss. It'll only be available during tomorrow night's game that starts with Reds Live at 6:30.
And that's a Bow Tie Tuesday special night. We'll be having you in a bow tie tomorrow night, probably.
Anything's possible. Anything's possible.
Well,
Here's Crawford now with a runner at third, 2 out. Yeah, you got the Bow Tie Tuesday tomorrow. Mike's Car Wash. You may be able to get a a discounted car wash if the Reds can win tomorrow night.
better believe it. Not just any car wash either. The ultimate.
Mike's a good spot now. One-out triple by Belt. Stayed there when Williamson grounded out to short against the drawn-in infield, and now Finnegan trying to dispose of Crawford to end this third. To center, and there goes Hamilton again, but he'll draw a beat on it. Inning is over. Nice work by Finnegan to work around the one-out triple.
Let's talk about Devin Mesoraco going on the disabled list with the torn left labrum. He thinks he did it while swinging. Surgery is still an option. They haven't decided fully yet. So Tucker Barnhart going forward is going to get the playing time, guys, as he steps in against Johnny Cueto. Now, if there's a bright side to this, some guys are handed playing time and other guys, they've earned playing time. As we've watched Tucker Barnhart progress, the numbers will back it up. Our IGS bringing the energy highest average as a catcher this season. You'll see Tucker Barnhart 317 behind only Molina and Grandal. He is coming around as an everyday catcher, and the Reds are going to need him to be an everyday catcher.
Yeah, he's been a pleasant, I don't know if I want to use the word surprise, but he's been a pleasant development to watch, hasn't he?
Well, he has, and let's just hope that he's able to keep the pace that he's set for himself so far. It's a tough thing to do, though, when you're catching, and that's where your primary responsibility is handling the pitching staff. For Tucker Barnhart, I mean, that's always been his emphasis. So hitting has always come secondary, knowing that he's in the big leagues mainly because he can catch and throw, not because he's an offensive style catcher.
Boy, can he catch and throw. Out in front of that one.
Last year, the Reds had Kyle Skipworth up as a backup catcher for a while out of AAA. He is not available now. He just had ankle surgery. I think they moved him to the 60-day disabled list. So he'll be done for quite a while if you're looking for anyone else who can come up from the minor leagues.
Barnhart, solid contact, base hit into right field. Barnhart entered this game with a .375 on base percentage. Boy, it almost looks like he just totally revamped his swing from both sides.
Well, it just looks like he's got it under control. And it could be just the fact that he has gotten older. He's gotten more experience. Finally, the things that hitting coaches are telling him are beginning to sink in, and he can do what they're suggesting.
Belt will look at second, ultimately throw to first base. Sacrifice executed by Brandon Finnegan. There goes 3-4 for out number 1.
I do like the way Belt came in and played that ball, though, because when he was fielding the ball, he had already set his body up to be able to throw to second base just in case. This is another advantage of a left-handed throwing first baseman. See, he's already set up right there. His feet are lined up perfectly to deliver the ball to second base. He looks up, he sees Barnhart there closer than he thought, so he ends up going to first base to get the sure out.
Now Billy Hamilton with the opportunity to get the Reds on the board, and he'll hit one into left center. That will give the Reds their first run. Barnhart will score. Close at second. Billy in there with a head-first slide and a 2-base hit. Boy, he can turn a single into a double and a double into a triple better than anyone in the game. He gets the 2-base hit here. Reds are on the board down 3-1.
Well, 2 times now left-handed. He's hit the ball hard. He hits the ball the other way, staying behind it nicely. That's all they're trying to get Billy Hamilton to do. And when he does it, it is a thing of beauty, because a little blue base hit in the shallow left center field is a double. For everyone else in this ballpark, you're staying at first base.
He gets from a stop to full speed in about a step and a half, doesn't he? I mean, to tell you, he really can pick it up quickly. 6th double for Billy. Second hit of the inning for the Reds, and they're not down by a pair. De Jesus, who had to hit his first time, represents the tying run.
You see Billy with that little protector that he puts on his left hand, and that's so that he can slide into a base, keep his fingers extended, but not risk injuring those fingers. I'd actually like to see him have a brace that would also have the thumb protected, because that's what has bothered him so far this year.
Doesn't Starling Marte have something similar that does incorporate the thumb thing like you're talking about?
We saw it over the weekend. I didn't notice if it worked with the thumb or not. Because sometimes if you go hard enough into the bag, I mean, you're going full blast into the bag. And if you're not wearing one of those protectors, what coaches will tell you to do is to go in, making a fist, or at least pull your fingers in so that you touch it with your knocking knuckles to base, and you don't break your finger, jam a finger, dislocate a finger, or so on. But you could also have one made, I'm sure, that would encompass protection for that thumb, which probably wouldn't hurt in Billy's case.
A lot of guys you see carry their batting gloves.
Well, Cueto knew this was going to happen if he had Hamilton on base. And he saw it from the dugout many, many times, and now he realizes how uncomfortable it can be.
Tomlinson trying to keep him close.
Now, Johnny takes pride in not giving up any stolen bases, period. But the wise thing to do, really, when you've got a 2-run lead, it's early in the ball game, and Joey Votto in the on-deck circle, go ahead and go right after the hitter right here.
Boy, anything to the outfield, you got to believe that Hamilton would score. DeJesus a sharp single to second his first time. That's the third time now that Cueto has stepped off, trying to keep Hamilton close. Talked about Cueto and his ability to hold runners. He has not allowed a steal a third since 2011. Will Hamilton end that streak right here? Nearly perfect this year. 5 for 5 in stolen bases.
I can't remember Johnny Cueto ever giving a runner this much attention. And it could have been that Tomlinson came in to tell him, listen, I'm not going to come over and cover second base now. You just go ahead and go to the plate. You can vary your moves. You can look them back, do whatever. I'll jock him a little bit. But I don't think the Giants want Tomlinson out of position here to let him, an average ground ball, go into the hole where he just left because he's trying to hold Billy Hamilton at second. Wouldn't be a bad idea, though, for Cueto to do the inside move to second base right here and doesn't have to make a throw.
Ball 4, an 8-pitch AB for DeJesus with the end result, Cueto's first walk.
I think Cueto was surprised that it was ball 4. He immediately looked back up at the scoreboard and is like, oh, my fault. I didn't realize there was 3 balls on him. He got so wrapped up in Billy Hamilton at second base, he lost count of the count.
So now Crawford will come in, Duffy will come in, and the three of them talk it over on the backside of the mound with Votto representing the go-ahead run at the plate. He struck out his first time.
They're not talking about bunt defense.
Billy out at second, to Jesus at first, and here's Votto.
Now Votto watched him for a couple of pitches in this first AB. We'll see if he's more aggressive here with a runner in scoring position. First pitch, letter high changeup.
We saw some high strike calls in Pittsburgh, particularly with Angel Hernandez. Get a high strike call right there. James Hoy. Votto, of course, has been hitting the ball much better as of late. His last 9 games at .345. Had a good road trip.
And he's hit the ball hard enough that his average probably should be even more than that. He's had a lot of atom balls. Well, maybe the threat of the stolen base has gotten into the psyche of Johnny Cueto.
He cruised through the first 2. Giving up a hit to Barnhart. RBI double to Hamilton. The walk to DeJesus, keeping half of attention at second base on Hamilton. And now 2-1 to Votto. At the borderline call there, 2-2.
Yeah, a little backdoor slider right there that Votto gave up on.
Joey trying to add to his RBI total, sitting at 12. Chokes up on that bat. Now let's see if Brian Price here elects to move Hamilton and DeJesus on a 3-2 pitch with 1 out. The 55th pitch of the night by Cueto. Runners go.
Well, that's just going to, this stat is going to change for Johnny Cueto. The second fewest pitches per inning of anybody in the National League behind Clayton Kershaw. Reds have run him a lot here in this inning. 3 balls and 2 strikes again for the second batter in a row.
Crawford almost playing right behind the bag at second. Johnny throws that way, but Crawford wasn't near the base.
Hamilton is still in his head.
Yeah.
There's no question about it.
Cueto's walked only 5, 37 and a third innings coming into tonight's game. Walk to Jesus. Now he's 3-2 on Votto. Runners go. Votto cracks this one. Center field. Span will watch it go. Votto at number 3. And the Reds have taken a 4-3 lead. The glad hand from his teammates in the dugout, and a 4-run inning for Cincinnati against their former teammate Johnny Cueto. Well, he gives them up. Talking about Cueto, he gives them up to the big name hitters. He gives this one up to Votto. The last home run he allowed here at Great American was middle of June last year against Miguel Cabrera. 3 homers now, 15 batted in for Votto, and a 4-3 Reds lead.
Boy, that pitch came right back out over the plate. Cueto was hoping the ball was going to stay in the ballpark. He's pointing up to Denard Span, the center fielder, who can only look. That ball goes up on the grass berm.
Now Phillips will shoot one out into right field. That falls in front of Pence for a hit.
I really believe, you can't completely blame Billy Hamilton and the distraction for Cueto giving up that home run, but he just did not look the same after Hamilton got to second base. He's paid so much attention to him. He was up in the strike zone so much that he walked Ivan De Jesus Jr. And then made a terrible pitch to Votto on a 3-2 count. Credit Votto for putting good wood on that pitch.
And we talked about Cueto winning round 1 when he struck Joey out in the first, but boy, oh boy, does Votto win round 2. Bruce grounded out his first time. He hits one hard to center. Span going back. Span on the run, and he can't get it. It's off the wall. Here comes Phillips racing around third. He's going to score. Bruce in the third with a slide and a 3-base hit. And it has been a 5-run third for Cincinnati.
Well, Bruce hits it and hits it a ton. This is his spot right there. Thigh high, outer part of the plate, sweet part of the bat. I was surprised that ball didn't actually go farther. Span had a chance to pull that ball back in. It went off his glove and then died right there at the fence.
Second triple of the year for Bruce. Dave Righetti to the mound, and now he turns and heads back to the dugout. Pitching coach of the Giants. Cueto gave up 6 runs, 10 hits in 7 innings back on the 10th of April against the Dodgers in San Francisco. He's been touched up now for 5 runs, 6 hits so far in this game, and still looking for the final 2 outs of this inning. Suarez, the 8th man to bat.
The Giants have had several games this year where they've given up big numbers in 1 inning. They were hit with a 12-run inning in their most recent stop in New York just before they came here into Cincinnati. That'll beat down your bullpen a little bit. Half of the inning took 45 minutes.
They're not getting certainly the production out of their bullpen that they have been getting in the last 2 or 3 years.
Well, they've got some key injuries down there.
George Contos out. Romo out. Jeremy Affeld retired.
Cueto's just completely discombobulated right now. Now we've seen this happen from time to time. He's probably going through his mind what he thought would happen tonight, what could have been, what might have been, what no longer is going to happen.
And he walks a second of the inning.
After having 5 walks all year long, he comes in here and walks 2 in an inning. That's a leaderboard that every pitcher wants to be on, or at least every pitching coach wants his whole staff on.
Giants are going to get action, it looks like, now in their bullpen.
Well, they're going to get action and a pizza.
Oh, is that what the red phone was?
Red phone, no, the red phone, I think, is the bullpen line. The black one is the pizza line.
You would know.
Pick it up. Papa John's at the other end.
Line drive, right field, base hit Schebler. Bruce will score. Hustling over to third is Suarez. 6-run inning for the Reds. Barnhart, who led off the inning, will come up there again here in the third.
Scott Schebler got 2 very needed hits yesterday. 2 doubles, came off the mat really with the way he's been hitting the ball early in the year, and he gets a pitch in the exact same spot as he got yesterday and lines it hard to right field.
Now a right-hander, Vin Mazzaro, gets up, starts to throw in the Giants bullpen. A 6-run, 6-hit inning for the Reds against Cueto. Runner going to second. Bluff of a throw by Posey. Stolen base for Schebler. His first.
Schebler finds himself on a short list after that stolen base.
He sure does.
That was one of Tucker Barnhart's old-fashioned swings there.
10th man to bat in the inning. 6 hits, a pair of walks, a sacrifice bunt. The Reds have hit for the cycle, in fact, in the inning. 3 singles. Double by Hamilton, triple by Bruce, homer by Votto. About that, 4th time this year the Reds have scored 5 or more runs in an inning, time for the most in the National League, and yet the Reds offense overall near the bottom of the league.
We were talking about pitch counts for Brandon Finnegan getting up there in a hurry. Same now for Cueto.
That is only the 2nd out of the inning.
You know, when we said Johnny Cueto signed that long-term deal, that 6-year, $130 million deal with the San Francisco Giants, it contains a very interesting clause in there that after the 2017 season, Johnny Cueto can opt out of that contract completely. I think at that time he's probably making $21 or $22 million. And receive a $5 million bonus and say goodbye to the Giants. So he would be 38 years old, or make it 32 years old at the beginning of the 2018 season if he decided to opt out, which evidently is the latest trend in a lot of multi-year contracts.
What Greinke did last year.
I don't understand why ball clubs agree to those, but maybe that was the condition that Johnny Cueto put on the Giants. And they had no choice but to accept.
Of course, both free agent pitchers from a year ago from the Reds, Cueto and Leake, both ended up signing big money deals. Leake was originally traded to the Giants, became a free agent, signed with the Cardinals. Cueto traded to Kansas City, became a free agent, signed with the Giants. He's gotten off to a good start. That has not been the case with Mike Leake.
Well, there was a time a few years ago that the Reds had to make a decision as to which of their prize starters they were going to keep. Mike Leake, Johnny Cueto, Matt Latos, or Homer Bailey. And as it turned out, Homer Bailey got the nod, and you could only sign one of them. I think in the long run, with the salaries the way they are, and the budget restrictions on smaller market clubs like the Reds, to get the 3 players that they got in return for Johnny Cueto, I think in the long run that's going to work out great.
Finnegan, one of them, takes strike 3 there. But boy, a productive frame for the Reds. They put up 6, highlighted by this ball into center field by Joey Votto. And after 3, the Reds up 6-3. Is brought to you by your local Ford dealer. Ford, go further. And by Cincinnati Children's, ranking 3rd in the country on U.S. News Best Children's Hospitals. And of course, may the force be with you this weekend when the Reds host Star Wars weekend here at the ballpark. This Saturday, the first 25,000 fans will receive a Star Wars X-Wing fighter Mr. Reds bobblehead. That's a mouthful right there. Star Wars X-Wing fighter Mr. Reds bobblehead, thanks to Dynegy Energy Services. Get your tickets to Star Wars Weekend for as low as $12. 513-381-REDS or visit Reds.com. Finnegan back to work. He left the mound in the middle of the 3rd, trailing 3-0. He takes the mound here in the top of the 4th, leading 6-3. He gets 8, 9, and 1. Tomlinson, then the pitcher spotted. Cueto is on deck on the top of the order and span.
Tomlinson with the glasses on like that looks like he more belongs in the sabermetrics department for the Giants than playing in the infield.
It's like Eric Sogard, a little bit of his cross-town mate, Oakland. Over the head of the diving DeJesus and a hit.
I take that back entirely. That's a nice swing and a hard line drive. He went right down and got a ball down around chin high.
Tomlinson 2 for 2. You always talk about that long stretch for the pitcher, Chris, when your team scores all the runs like the Reds did.
You'll take it any time.
Cueto wanting to bunt. He had to hit his first time, but he's a very adept bunter.
Reds are running that play where Brandon Phillips comes over to second base and sneaks in behind the base runner. He wants to kind of sneak in behind first base over here and get that throw if they're able to have Cueto bunt through a baseball. Butcher boy play, try to slap one by Votto. Like the Giants had a hard time finding a helmet that fit Johnny's also.
Well, he keeps that I don't know, what do you call that cap type thing he wears under his hat and helmet?
Scout cap.
Strike 3 called. Throw down is there. Safe. The call at second base.
De Jesus immediately points into the dugout. He wants Brian Price to take a look at that one.
Jim Joyce is the umpire.
Tomlinson goes in head first. I wonder if he got his hand around and onto the bag before the tag. I think he did.
Exactly right.
And did he come off the bag at all? Look at him reaching, straining, just trying to stay in contact.
Good call right there by Jim Joyce. And a steal by Tomlinson, his second of the year.
He's doing all the little sabermetric things to keep the inning alive. Really would be a nice momentum inning for Finnegan to be able to put a 0 on the board right here.
Span is 0 for 2. This will move the runner along, but it's out number 2. Reds fans, if you can't watch the game on TV, you can now stream Reds games live on your mobile device. Just go to your app store and download the free Fox Sports Go app. Log in and stream the Reds wherever you go. Two out now from Matt Duffy. Suarez stayed back on it, made the play. Duffy is out. And there's that 0 Chris talked about in the top of the 4th for Finnegan.
Here's tonight's mini Let's Motor player profile. Let's go down to the Southern League. Phillip Ervin, former first-round pick for the Reds. Southern League Player of the Week, 467 average, 3 long balls, 10 runs, 4 stolen bases, a 579 on-base percentage. Phillip Ervin was a guy in spring training that Brian Price said was showing flashes of looking like he was perhaps a big league player in the future. Got off to another slow start this season. The Reds really looking for him to put it together consistently, though, and hopefully the future is bright for one Phillip Ervin.
Well, Cueto back to the mound. He's thrown 80 pitches through 3 innings in this game. Joe Luckup, our excellent statistician, says it's the first time that Cueto has allowed 6 runs in a game at Great American Ballpark since August of 2009. Last time he allowed 6+ earned runs here at Great American since August 15th, 2009. Hamilton had an RBI double his last time. He made contact twice. Very good contact twice against Cueto so far. Strike 3 call. Strike on number 6 for Cueto.
Now the speed up delivery and the pinpoint control of a little 2-seam fastball on the corner.
Now Cueto will get Ivan De Jesus Jr., who's been on twice, a hit, a walk, a run scored. 6-run third and a 6-3 Reds lead here in the home 4th inning against Johnny Cueto. Nice play to his left, Duffy. 2 out. Remember, for Reds home run hits the Toyota sign during tonight's game. Shane Gibson from Erlanger, Kentucky will win the beautiful new Tundra that's on display here at Great American Ballpark. Don't forget your chance to win. You can register at an upcoming game by seeing your Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky Toyota dealers. Good luck tonight to Shane Gibson. Doesn't hit the Toyota Tundra, but it did get out into the hitter's backdrop area out in center, 2nd level. His 3rd of the year. The big blow, that 6-run 3rd inning for the Reds.
You know, as you see that a second time again, you see Cueto pointing up into the air. He's already used to pitching out there at AT&T Park in San Francisco.
Defensive shift, and Crawford will throw Votto out. And the Reds go in order here in the bottom of the 4th. Far, far away. This Friday, the first 20,000 fans receive a Star Wars poster. Plus, stick around for a post-game fireworks show. Catch all the Star Wars and Reds action for as low as $12. For tickets, 513-381-REDS or visit Reds.com. Star Wars, Jim Day. That's big in your life, I know. Star Wars. I go to Star Trek, but you're a Star Wars guy. Posey leads it off here in the 5th. You dress up, I guess, on those in some of those Star Wars costumes when you go to those fan fests around the country during the off season.
You must be mistaking me for Marty Brenneman, because I know Marty is big into dressing up as a stormtrooper.
Is he? Yeah.
Yes.
You go as Chewbacca, one of those characters?
No, I just tag along with Marty and take pictures.
I didn't know they made those stormtrooper uniforms that small.
Oh. Wow. He also has a Yoda costume.
Yes,
there
indeed.
you go. Now you're talking.
You just go along with him, take the pictures, and hunt out the diners.
Exactly. I'm a diner guy.
You are a diner guy. Fine pitch, walk to Posey. Starts the 5th inning for San Francisco. 3rd walk by Finnegan. Brandon to 5 starts this year, 3 quality starts. His longest outing 6 2/3. That came in Chicago on the 11th of April. That's of course when he had the no-hitter going into the late stages of the 7th. Phillips, and his play is at first. Boy, Pence hustles down the line. He made that very close.
Yeah, just one thing never changes about Hunter Pence's game of baseball is that he just never plays it at 80% or 60%. I mean, it's just all out all the time.
So Posey in the scoring position, and the batter now is Belt.
You know, it's worthwhile saying too that Hunter Pence, you know, well known for his emotional leadership of the Giants, the pep talks he gave them a few years ago when they came into Cincinnati down 2 games to none in the playoffs and then swept the Reds. I mean, he really led them emotionally on a charge that a lot of people couldn't believe. But unless you run hard the way Posey does, or the way Pence does, no one's going to believe you when you give those clubhouse talks. No one's going to really back you up if all you are is talk, but you don't play the way that you talk about. So since he plays that way, he can get the guys behind him and he can get them fired up.
Here's what you're talking about, Chris. This is game 3. Reds up 2 games to none, having won twice in San Francisco. And he was a newcomer to that team.
He was.
To right field by Williamson. Long run, Jay, and he gets there. Williamson flies out. Finnegan works around the leadoff walk. Sports Service delivers everything you have come to expect and more. Includes a free subscription to At Bat Premium, the #1 app for live baseball. Blackout and other restrictions do apply. Visit MLB.tv for details. 6-3 Redlegs, bottom of the 5th inning. All those runs and 6 of the 7 hits by the Reds came in that bottom of the 3rd against Johnny Cueto. Back out there here for inning number 5. His pitch count at 89. He'll get Phillips, Bruce, and Suarez. Interesting, he retired the Reds in order in the 2nd. Gave up 6 runs on 6 hits in the 3rd. Faced 11 batters and retired the Reds in order in the 4th.
One of the things that has made Johnny Cueto so effective this year, winning 4 of the first 5 games that he's had decisions in, is the fact that he throws first pitch strikes to just about everybody he faces. He leads the league in that category. 78% of the time that first pitch goes in there for a strike. And that's an off the chart percentage. It's an early sample size, yes. But tonight he's around 61% instead of 78%. So for whatever reason, he's not throwing as many early strikes as he has this year.
I know you do a lot of pitching clinics and the like during the season, and particularly during the off season. Do you go around and ask the young guys, what's your best pitch? What's your best pitch? And hoping that one of them will say a first pitch strike.
Absolutely. It's a good second pitch too. And Brandon Phillips is wondering what's going on right here, because he's been low bridge now by Cueto twice in a row. Could it have been that hit to right field that he got off of Cueto in the 3rd inning, that Cueto's trying to keep him off the plate and throws him a slider outside? Don't you be leaning out over the plate on me.
That's slicing out of play. Bruce is waiting next. Phillips, of course, kept that hitting streak alive in New York in terms of getting a hit while playing on the road in New York in the first game when he had the infield single. Then he was out the next 2 games. Remember that terrible at bat where he fouled the ball back-to-back pitches off his shin, and he was hit on the ring finger of his left hand. Missed 2 games, but he benefited from the off day between the New York and Pittsburgh series. Played all 3 games in Pittsburgh, went 1 for 12 there. Has a hit here tonight and a run scored. Seven of them now for Cueto.
Cueto is one of the first right-handed pitchers in a long time that has embraced throwing the changeup to a right-handed hitter. Normally that's reserved for lefties, but he's found a way to make that one of his most effective pitches.
Now set down 6 in a row since the RBI single to right by Schebler. He's gotten Bruce, and Bruce has gotten him once tonight. #100th pitch of the night coming up now for Cueto. chased it, and on 3 pitches, he becomes the 8th strikeout of the night for the Giants right-hander.
Well, the second on back-to-back off-speed pitches. He had a changeup to Brandon Phillips, and then a really good down-and-away change right there to Jay Bruce. As I remember those, we look back on the home runs that were hit, or at least the home run by Votto and the triple by Bruce. Both of those came on fastballs that kind of snuck out over the plate. Here are the 2 pitches we're talking about, and look at the location. He had been trying to pitch Joey Votto in, didn't get it inside, and Jay Bruce is a guy that will show you that he prefers the ball on the outer part of the plate. I really think it's a misnomer that left-handers like the ball in and they pull the ball to right field. You know, if you chart all the home runs that Adam Dunn hit, the majority of those are on the outer third of the plate. Same way with Jay Bruce. But getting it inside to a right-handed hitter, or to a left-handed hitter as a right-handed pitcher, tough thing to do. So if you put a good swing on it, you take advantage of a mistake pitch.
Going to have his third 1-2-3 inning as he retires Suarez in that broken back comebacker. Through 5, Reds lead 6-3.
It may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Cincinnati Reds.
Take a look at our T-Mobile greater coverage of baseball. We'll take a look at the National League West division. How about this? The Rockies, the Dodgers, the Giants, all atop the division at the 500 mark. Going into yesterday, the Rockies led the division, and they were a game under 500.
Yeah, really, it's a division that is wide open for just about anybody in that division to take. Interesting, the Giants got out to a tremendous start early in the year, and then they went on and lost 4 straight to the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Crawford is 0 for 2. He's flied out twice. Finnegan has, I mentioned earlier, 3 quality starts. Iglesias has 2. Nobody else has more than 1. He's going to get a 3rd fly ball out off the bat of Crawford here as Schebler handles that. First out, 6th inning.
Boy, you really have to admire the way that Brandon Finnegan has really hung tough. He gave up 3 runs in the 2nd inning. Had a little bit of problem with a 1-out triple by Brandon Belt in the 3rd, and ever since that time he's really just buckled down and pitched a whale of a ball game.
Tomlinson's hit the ball hard twice, this time to the right side, and Phillips takes care of him. So now Finnegan is in a position, as the Giants will lift Cueto and Connor Gillespie up there, to have his first 1-2-3 inning. Cueto is shortest out of the year, 5 innings. Gillespie, straight left-handed hitter, only has 5 at bats, and he'll dribble that one inside 3rd and out into shallow left field. They played him to shift. They hit it right off the end of the bat and gets himself his opposite field single.
Well, they were really shifting around. Gillespie was definitely trying to hit the ball that way, and he got it actually in on the hands. How he kept it foul, I'll never know. He may not either, but that ball goes for a base hit. Yeah, that's really a lot more like most of the hits that the Giants have had off of Brandon Finnegan tonight, on the ground finding holes. The big hit was by Tomlinson. Ground ball that went right underneath the glove of Joey Votto in the 2nd inning.
The Reds will face a new pitcher come the bottom of the 6th inning. Meanwhile, the Reds have action of their own in the bullpen. J.C. Ramirez up and throwing. Cueto ends up 106 pitches, 5 innings, 6 runs, all earned, 7 hits, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts. And that's, of course, the only visit that the Giants make to Cincinnati in the regular season. So really the only time this year that Cueto pitches here. Reds have their return trip to San Francisco. He could pitch against the Reds out there. Span is out on a 4-3 ground out.
Bailey has had no setbacks in his comeback from Tommy John surgery until this past week. Rehab start at Pensacola. He felt a weird sensation on the back of his elbow. It alarmed him so much that he immediately sent the alarm to the Reds.
The simple fact that I made a call and said, hey, I need to get checked out, should have been alarming enough to them. Yeah. I mean, they know how bad I want to get back. But again, I think it was last time we were here, I said, you know, the last thing I want to do is get a month into playing and then having to be shut back down again. Well, I'd rather only go through this one time, come back, and stay back. And I think that that's why we're doing the things that we're doing.
And Homer says they're going to shut him down from throwing from 5 days to a week. And it's not uncommon that you have minor setbacks like this coming back from Tommy John surgery. They believe it's just a nerve issue in the back of his elbow that's sending a sensation up into his triceps. So they're not completely alarmed by it, but they want to play it safe. As Homer said, he's come this far. There's no reason to push it.
That's a good point. And really, I think I also heard Homer say when he was standing there in front of his locker during the pregame, he said, I've been a little surprised that I haven't had some sort of a setback. So to what Jim Day says, it is very common for these guys to run into these kind of things, and hopefully it's just a small issue for Homer.
Well, it's not even yet a year out, right? Wasn't it May the 8th?
Yes, it was.
When he had his Tommy John surgery, and it's not uncommon for pitchers now to wait 15 months to come back. So, you know, if there's any soreness at all, why push it? In the year in which the Reds are rebuilding, Homer Bailey's going to come back, and he's going to come back healthy and throwing the ball like he did before he had arm surgery. So whether he gets back here in the middle of May or he gets back here in the middle of July or even later, what real difference does it make? Although he probably, like everybody who's on the DL, hates to be on the DL and wants to come back and compete with the guys. Really got to take care of that.
Man, we'll keep our eye on Homer Bailey and also on Anthony DeSclafani, who had a little sensation in his side after his last rehab start. Because there was a thought out there that maybe DeSclafani would start in this series or certainly during this homestand, but that oblique still giving him just a little bit of an issue, so much so that he's not at 100%. He, like Bailey, just a small, hopefully, setback. Reds game notes have John Moscott set to make the start here tomorrow in the second game of that series. Remember, he left his last start in New York after 5 innings, feeling some discomfort in his non-throwing shoulder, the one that was operated on last year after he dislocated that shoulder in Detroit. Then you have to wonder about John Lamb, who was slated to start the game tonight in Louisville, but was scratched from that start. Hey, Wednesday, an all-new Reds Weekly comes your way. Pete Rose talks with Jim Day about his June Reds Hall of Fame weekend. Our very own Chris Welsh demonstrates how to break in a new glove, plus some of the new food items here at Great American Ballpark. Join Jeff Pecoro, Doug Flynn, Wednesdays at 6 for Reds Weekly right here on Fox Sports Ohio. Bruce Bochy to the mound. He'll take the baseball from Javier Lopez. New pitcher on. This is our Skyline Chili. Call to the bullpen. Back in a moment. Is a right-hander, Vin Mazzaro. Second pitcher of this inning, third of the night for San Francisco.
We've seen Mazzaro around, including with the Pittsburgh Pirates, 53 games a couple of years ago, or make it 3 years ago with the Pirates. Just got called up Saturday from Sacramento, where he had a 0.6 earned run average.
It was an off-season minor league free agent signee by the Giants. He gets the former Giant here, and Duvall lifts a high fly ball into right. So one pitch by Mazzaro results in the third out in the end of the bottom of the sixth. Again, don't miss Star Wars weekend here at Great American Ballpark. That's this weekend. Sunday, bring the family and enjoy live mascot races, face painters, games, and more. Plus, all kids 14 and younger get a Star Wars themed Fathead thanks to PNC Bank. For tickets, 513-381-REDS or visit reds.com. Kids Star Wars Fathead Sunday. That'll be against the Milwaukee Brewers. Reds and the Brewers will get together for the first time this year come Thursday night. Meanwhile, new pitcher on for the Reds, J.C. Ramirez.
Well, now up for Brian Price and Mark Riggins to weave their way through the final 3 innings of this ball game using a bullpen with really not a lot of defined roles out there. Ramirez will be the first up. Hard throwing right-hander. That the Reds picked up in the offseason. He was with Seattle and Arizona last year, started the season this year in Louisville.
He did a good job down there in 5 appearances covering 6 innings, did not allow a run.
Well, the helplessness, though, that the Reds staff, especially Brian Price and the pitching coach Mark Riggins, must have when they see pitchers come in out of the bullpen and not throw the ball over the plate. And he gets one on the corner on a 2-0 count. Because there's really nothing you can do about it.
Well, Ramirez in 3 of the 4 times he's been out there has been unscored upon. Last time out 2 innings against Pittsburgh on Thursday. That was, or rather on the 30th, that was Saturday. 2 innings of no run, no hit baseball. Six innings for Finnegan, 3 runs, 6 hits, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. He threw 90 pitches, so he gets his 4th quality start in 6 outings so far this year for Finnegan.
Nice comeback there for J.C. Ramirez. He went down 2-0 on the count and then threw 3 consecutive fastballs. And the last one, beauty.
Here's Buster Posey, singled, struck out, walked. Into the left by Posey.
This guy can really hit. I mean, what great hand-eye coordination. That pitch looked like it was coming up out of the strike zone, and he just puts a nice swing on it. 2 hits, both to left field. Sandwiched around a walk or a strikeout.
Posey, 3-time All-Star, former Rookie of the Year, former league MVP. I guess it was back in 2011 when his injury at the plate led ultimately to the change in the way catchers can block the plate, the way runners can come into catchers without the ball.
Yeah, that known as the Buster Posey rule. And of course, the rule that the neighborhood played this year, kind of informally known as the Chase Utley rule.
But funny, because it was Posey who got hurt as to why the rule is called, named after him, and it was Utley who did the hurting, and why the play at second is named after him.
One victim, one villain.
Should be the Ruben Tejada rule. Or the Jung Ho Gung rule.
That's the pitch they really like to get Ramirez to be more consistent with, that slider, because he's got plenty enough arm. We've seen him throw as hard as 98 miles an hour, and that slider comes in at 90. It's got to look like a strike coming out of your hand.
Tattooed by Pence to center. Billy will play it on a hop off the wall. Giants are going to have them at second and third with 1 out here in the 7th. Pence's 4th double.
Well, you had Pence down in the count anyway, with a couple of strikes on him. He missed with the slider, and that ball just came right back out over the plate, and boy, he put the wood to it.
Talked about it before. Look at the way Pence wears those pants, not just below the knee like a lot of guys who show all their sock, but above the knee.
I think it gives him an advantage of having the lower part of the strike zone, which are the hollow of the knees right below the kneecap. That's the lower part of the zone. He doesn't get as many low pitches called on him for strikes as other guys who want to be a little more stylish.
You can tell you thought that out. That's a good point right there.
I always went to Adam Dunn. He was always a guy that, big tall guy, you know, and he was always complaining about being rung up on low strikes. I said there's one way to fix that. Get those pants hemmed.
Being the fashion mogul that he was, he said no.
Well, he's a pretty good home run hitter, but
yeah. It does give, though, the umpires a line to go by, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Second time that Barnhart has gone to the mound in this inning to talk with J.C. Ramirez. I don't think Barnhart wears them, but remember Brian Pena had those stick-on bright nail. I don't know what you'd call them. Illuminance. Make sure the pitcher could see the number of fingers that he has down. You remember what I'm talking about?
Sure do. Yeah, they either paint his nails or they have little stick-ons, little decals that you put on your fingernails.
No such items for Tucker.
Usually fluorescent in color or white so that it's easy to see the shadows. When you're trying to give a sign down between your legs, sometimes you can't see it well.
Makes a whole lot of sense, doesn't it?
It does. It even makes more sense when you're on the road with gray pants. It's a big hitter right here in a big count. Brandon Belt has plenty enough power to tie this ball game up with one swing of the bat. He's got 18 runs batted in already this year.
Batted in on him there, and it's now a full count.
In 7 games last year, he simply destroyed the Reds. Hit over 460, 3 home runs, and drove in 10 in 7 games.
Gets it out into left center. That's going to fall. 1 run will score. Ball is brought back in and cut off by Suarez. And that's 3 straight hits by the Giants, and it's now a 6-4 game.
I'll tell you, Hunter Pence, the runner at second base, read this perfectly. He knew exactly where the outfielders were, but Buster Posey's going to go back to the bag right there. Oh, no, excuse me. I thought he had a better jump than that, and that's why they held him at third base. I thought Pence knew all the way that ball was going to be able to fall in.
Well, Ramirez allows the run. That is now at least 1 earned run allowed in 20 straight games by the Reds bullpen. Ties the longest streak in team history, dating back to the 11th of April. 20 straight games in which the bullpen has been touched up for an earned run.
Well, the good news about this situation, even with a pinch hitter up there, that J.C. Ramirez has a chance for a double play to get out of the inning with no more damage.
So Gregor Blanco off the bench to pinch hit. .333 on the year with a couple of RBIs, but more importantly for the Giants, 4 for 11 as a pinch hitter. Blanco now 32 years old. He's been with the Giants since 2012. So he's been a part of 2 of their World Series championships. In fact, he was an everyday player, an everyday outfielder with the 12 and 14 titles. Duffy struck out. Posey singled. Pence doubled him in. Belt singled. It was Belt who drove in the run. Pence's double sent Posey to third. Now it's 6-4. Tying run Belt at first base. Blanco batting from Mac Williamson. Ramirez a pitch away from loading the bases. Right-hander Drew Hayes throwing in the Reds bullpen.
When you're a pitcher that's having a hard time throwing the ball over the plate and you get the 3-2 count and you do throw a strike and the guy fouls it off, you're quite disappointed because now you got to come back and do the same thing again. You get frustrated with those hitters that can spoil good pitches.
Runner goes from first, and there it happens again. Another 3-2 foul by Blanco.
And Ramirez, he has to tell himself, whatever he tells himself to keep himself together in his delivery, whatever little checkpoint he has to make sure he's got a good release point, that's what you worry about here. You can't worry about the runners on base or the score of the game.
Let's see if Belt is going again. It looked like he was. Ramirez sends him back to the bag. Giants scored 3 in the second. Reds were able to get 6 in the bottom of the third against Cueto. Giants have picked up a run here in the 7th. There goes Belt. There's a ball hit into right. That's going to be a hit. It's a 1-run game now at 6-5. And that is 4 straight hits by the Giants against J.C. Ramirez.
Well, what's happened with Ramirez here is that he's shown the Giants that he's not able to throw his breaking ball over for a strike. So they're waiting for a fastball. They're just putting a nice, easy swing on it. And the pitch that gets out over the plate gets another line drive.
J.C. Ramirez has thrown his last pitch. Brian Price is on his way to the mound. Hunter Pence scores to make it a 1-run game as Gregor Blanco comes up with his 5th pinch hit of the season so far. Ramirez out. Drew Hayes in. Mo Egger from 700 WLW for the Reds fan cam this Friday night at the Holy Grail. Your chance to answer Reds trivia, win great prizes, be part of the Reds Live pre and post game show. The party starts at 6 this Friday at the Holy Grail. New pitcher on, second of the inning. Right-hander Drew Hayes will come on and try to keep the Reds in front by a run.
He's got 2 assignments right now. Number 1, obviously, is trying to get the hitter out, but also keep Gregor Blanco close at first base. The game within the game right here is that Blanco may want to steal second base to get out of the double play opportunity that the Reds have right now.
Blanco stole 13 a year ago, none yet this year.
He has had as many as 26 in a season. So he's not a burner, but he's certainly capable.
His runners on at the corners belong to Ramirez.
They'll get a little throw over here.
Hayes worked a game in New York, did not get into a game in Pittsburgh. Laid off, and the appeal denied down there to the third base umpire Marvin Hudson. Run at third, go ahead, run at first for San Francisco. Crawford hits it hard into right center. Hamilton will go back, and that ball is out of here. 3-run homer, Brandon Crawford, his 3rd of the year. And the Giants have scored 5 times here in the 7th, and they now regain the lead at 8-6.
Well, a changeup waist high out over the plate, and I think that Crawford knew it. Tucker Barnhart knew it, and of course Drew Hayes knew it immediately.
So now it'll be for the 2nd time in this game. The Reds will need to come from behind. 5 straight hits by San Francisco.
It's really been a game of big innings.
Yeah.
There's only been 3 half innings where there were runs scored. Try and score 3 in the 2nd. Reds 6 in the 3rd, and now the Giants 5 spot in the 7th. You know it's only a game, but you got to be thinking in there that Brian Price and Mark Riggins, they just have a pit in their stomach. When you have a starter give an outing like Brandon Finnegan tonight against a lot of odds. I mean, he's facing Johnny Cueto, and all the hoopla was all about Cueto, and all the emphasis was on Cueto. But at the end of the night, the guy that pitched the better ball game was the Reds' 23-year-old starter, Brandon Finnegan. And just can't figure out the right formula to use to close the game out, if the formula does exist.
Well, to the starters' credits, Chris, you look at the last 4 games. You go back to Straley on Friday night in Pittsburgh, 2 runs in 6 innings. Skip the Simon start on Saturday. Yesterday, Tim Adelman was just wonderful in Pittsburgh, and tonight, as you said, Finnegan threw the ball very well here. So the starting pitching starting to show signs of going in the right direction. Mazzaro batting for himself strikes out. Stretch time here in Cincinnati. Reds now need more offense. Fox Sports Ohio. Make sure you stick around after the game for Reds Live post game, brought to you by Performance Kings Honda. Well, fellows will have the complete recap of the game, including interviews from the clubhouse, interview on the field if the Reds come back and win this game. Reds Live post game coming up afterwards. Vin Mazzaro came on in the bottom of the 6th inning. Was able to retire the pinch hitter Adam Duvall on 1 pitch. He stays in, faces the Reds here in the 7th. Gregor Blanco, who had the pinch hit RBI single in the 7th, stays in the game. He takes over in left field for the Giants. Lee Hamilton leads it off. He's 1 for 3. Duffy way in at 3rd. Billy now got to look at a 3-1 pitch leading off here in the bottom of the 7th. Oh, he slapped it right at Duffy. Reacts quickly and throws Hamilton out.
Still, you got to like what you see out of Billy Hamilton tonight. Three times up, 3 times going the other way, staying behind the baseball, hit sharply, but right at the 3rd baseman.
Chris, I know Hamilton started the game hitting .220 with an on base of .281, but have you seen noticeable improvement from him in the last week to 10 days?
I think once he gets healthy, he's going to be able to to do what a lot of people expect them to do. I mean, there are people that know a lot more about hitting than I do that firmly believe that Billy Hamilton, although he's a work in progress, is going to be a star player. He already gives you superlative defense. He's one of the best center fielders in all of baseball right now. A lot of people don't remember, though, that he's had some injuries, and he's played with those injuries, and hand injuries that he's had. Those are the most difficult for hitters to get over, and they're the most difficult to gauge, and they're also difficult for fans to understand. He still has his thumb wrapped, as you see right there. So it's not 100% yet.
And that's the injury from this year. We're not even talking about the shoulder injury he suffered a year ago.
If the Reds decide to give up on Billy Hamilton, there are 29 other ball clubs that'll be standing in line.
This could be trouble down the right field line, and it is. DeJesus gets his second hit of the night. On base for the third time. And the Reds, in the person of Votto, will bring the tying run to the plate here in the bottom of the seventh.
You know, you hit those in batting practice and you say, I'll take 100 of those this year. And it falls right in there, and it keeps it alive and makes this a little interesting here with Bruce Bochy moseying his way to the mound.
Well, he's used Cueto as a starter, Lopez, Mazzaro, and now he will turn again to his bullpen, and Josh Osich is coming in for the Giants. He'll be their new pitcher. A left-hander, the second of the two they have down there. This is Josh Osich.
Osich came up halfway point last year, and boy, he really turned it on, and he's a very hard throwing left-hander with a couple of different kinds of fastballs. He also relies a lot on a changeup. The downside is the walks. He's had 4 walks in 11 innings, and that alone, if he can ever conquer that particular part of the battle, they look at him as a late inning pitcher with a lot of reliability.
He's brought in to face Votto. Joey, of course, the 3-run homer earlier against Cueto. His third of the year. He gets the lefty here, representing the tying run. career .296 hitter against lefties.
That's an incredible number. I mean, you say it, it rolls off your lips, you don't think anything about it. But to consider the fact that most of the lefties that he faces are lefties who are brought in out of the bullpen as specialists just to face him.
Down now 1-2.
Osich in this year, he's been very small sample size, only 25 ABs, but he's only given up 2 hits to lefties. That's an .087 batting average.
Well, the Reds have Phillips next. And if he keeps it going, or Votto does, another lefty and Bruce after that. Votto has faced Osich one time in his career. He struck out. Reds trying to come off the mat like they did a number of times yesterday after giving up the lead. Now he'll get a look at a 3-2 pitch here from Osich. Crawford, Tomlinson, over to Bell. The defensive shift, and the end result is a 6-4-3 double play turned by the Giants. Started off good. He gets the strikeout there of Suarez. He had 3 of them in the first 2 innings as he wraps up the second with a strikeout of Schebler. And then Joey Votto, part of that 6-run third. He cracks his 3rd home run of the year. And how about Jay Bruce? Bruce 2 batters later, an RBI triple. All told in that inning, a 6-run Reds inning, but the Giants strike back. A 5 spot in the 7th, highlighted by that 3-run homer by Brandon Crawford against Drew Hayes. And that's where we are now into the 8th. Giants in front by a pair at 8-6. Our Honda game summary. Span leads it off against Hayes, who stays in there. Faced 3 batters, retired 2 of them, both on strikes. Unfortunately, the first batter he faced, Crawford, just saw it took him deep to right center. pitchers of record right now. Vin Mazzaro for the Giants. JC Ramirez for the Reds. Phillips could not quite get there. He dove, came up a little bit shy, and Span has his first hit of the night. So here now is Matt Duffy, who's 0 for 3 with a walk. Duffy struck out to start the 7th inning. That was against Ramirez. JC did get off to a good start in that inning, but then he allowed 4 straight hits. Got the hook from Price. Double play ball. There's one. Oh, and Votto is off the bag. Throw pulled into his left. DeJesus did not give a clean feed to Phillips. Brandon had to go up and get it. The Reds do not turn the double play.
Well, Brandon now has to stay on that bag. Remember, it's no more than neighborhood play. So when he had to go up and get the feed from DeJesus, it kind of got him into bad throwing position. I thought Votto had his foot on the bag, and
Brian Price took a look at it.
Evidently not. Oh.
No, he's still looking into it.
No, he's asking for a review.
Home plate umpire is James Hoy.
And now the crew chief says that who's the second base umpire, Jim Joyce, said it's too late. That you've already had the pitcher put the ball in play by standing on the rubber and getting time back in. I don't know if Brian would win this anyway, but I don't think that Jim Joyce is going to allow him for a review because the ball was put back into play, essentially eliminating the review time.
Jim's explaining it now to Brian Price. And I got to say, did you see Hayes step back on? Because I did not.
No, I didn't. I really wasn't looking at that. We were looking at the replay on our monitors. All right, so we'll take a look. Does he get back on the rubber and get ready to go? It looks like he does. And meanwhile, the home plate umpire was looking over to the side at Brian Price.
And I will agree with you that I don't think they could have won that anyway. It did look like Votto, there was daylight between Votto's foot and the first base bag. So it does become the first out of the inning, not a double play. Now it's Buster Posey. Well, you had the guy up there you wanted in Duffy. It hit into 6 double plays this year. Had that throw been a little bit lower from DeJesus to Phillips, they probably would have turned that one. So now it's Posey. Let's see if they can get it this time. Phillips, DeJesus, Votto. 4-6-3 puts an end to the Giants' 8th inning. Fans will receive a Star Wars X-Wing fighter Mr. Redlegs bobblehead thanks to Dynegy Energy Services. Get your tickets to Star Wars weekend for as low as $12 by calling 513-381-REDS or visit reds.com. Look at that Star Wars X-Wing fighter bobble. Something that we might see right on the dining room table of one Jeff Pecoro. Josh Osich induced the double play ball out of Votto to end the 7th. Works to Phillips to start the 8th. Brandon now 1 for 4. Hits the first pitch to Pence for out number 1. First pitch swinging Bruce. Belt handles that. So 2 pitches, 2 out here in the bottom of the 8th. And this Giants team has a chance to, at least temporarily, take over the top spot in the NL West by themselves. They came in 3-way tie with San Diego at 12-12. The Dodgers and the Giants at 13-13. Dodgers off today. San Diego plays later tonight at home against Colorado. Now it's Suarez is 0 for 2 with a walk.
Well, you knew Suarez was taking because you certainly don't want the 3-pitch inning opportunity for the opposing pitcher to have. I'm a little surprised the Reds aren't being more conservative at the plate against Osich, given his history for wildness.
He's come on and retired all 3 batters that have come up there against him. The Reds had that big 6-run 3rd inning, culminating with a base hit by Schebler into right to make it 6-3. Since that time, Giants pitchers have faced the minimum. The Reds have had just the 1 base runner. That was the hit by DeJesus, and then he was doubled up on the ball hit into by Votto. Down in order in the 4th, the 5th, the 6th. 3 batters and out thanks to the double play in the 7th. First 2 out here in the 8th. Got under it and popped it up. Crawford, and the inning is over. Reds go down in order for the 6th time tonight. Baseball on Fox Sports Ohio has been brought to you by Toyota. For over 30 offers, visit buyatoyota.com. Toyota, let's go places. Reds down a pair as we go into the 9th inning of this game. Drew Hayes is able to induce the double play ball off the bat of Posey to end the 8th. Goes back out there. He's worked an inning and 2/3 thus far. He faces Pence for the first time. Pence part of that 5-run 3rd. He doubled, sending Posey to 3rd base. Later scored. Closer Sergio Casilla. He has 4 saves this year. They did not need him yesterday in their 6-1 win against the Mets, but he is up and loosening now out in the Giants bullpen. I said Sergio, pardon me, Santiago Casilla. Belt will bat now. Pence gets the 4th walk issued by Reds pitching tonight. Belt been a big part of this game. He tripled back in the 3rd inning. Walk scored in the 2nd. Single drove in a run and then later scored as part of the Brandon Crawford home run in the 7th. J.J. Hoover has gotten up. Started to throw in the Reds bullpen. Hoover in the Reds pen, Casilla in the Giants bullpen. Reds have been out hit 12-8, outscored 8-6 here tonight. Now Hayes is in danger of walking the first 2 batters here in the 9th inning, and I would suspect if that occurs, J.J. Hoover may enter this game. Boy, they had the shift on, but DeJesus with a runner going went over to cover second, and the ball went right by his vacated spot. Belt has himself his 3rd hit of the night.
You got to remember that the Giants are still trying to play add-on right here. It's only a 2-run ball game, so you know you go 3-2, the runner is going to be put into motion. And crazy things happen when runners get put into motion. Infielders get out of position. Balls that normally are fielded are not fielded. And now all of a sudden you got 1st and 3rd instead of at least one, maybe even a double play.
Brian Price for the mound. He's made the call to the bullpen. Hayes is out. J.J. Hoover will enter this game as a 3rd reliever and 4th pitcher of the night for the Reds. Heavyweight wars as former champions and knockout masters finally meet in the octagon. It's all at a special time of 11 a.m. Eastern Sunday morning from the Netherlands. Watch it live on FS1 or on Fox Sports Go. J.J. Hoover, third reliever on for the Reds. Tries to keep this a 2-run game here in the top of the 9th. Hoover gets Gregor Blanco at a big pinch hit RBI single, part of that 5-run 7th. Leadoff walk to Pence. Single to center by Belt, spelled the end of Hayes. Now Hoover. It's once on the road trip. That was Friday in Pittsburgh. About 2 runs, 2 hits in 1 inning's worth of work. Finnegan, 3 runs, 6 innings, quality start. Left the game with a 6-3 lead. J.C. Ramirez, 4 runs, 4 hits in 1/3 of an inning. Hayes, 1 run so far. Runners on his, 3 hits in 1 2/3. Now it's J.J. Hoover, and he's fallen behind 3-1. Pence at third, Belt at first. Full count. Popped him up. DeJesus stays with it, and the Red shortstop makes the play. That's out number 1. You go from one lefty to another one. Here comes Brandon Crawford. He had the big blow, part of that 5-run 7th, the 3-run home run against Hayes. He's hit into 3 double play balls this year. 1 right here by Hoover gets him through this inning. Reds in the 9th have Shebler, Barnhart, and then a pinch hitter for Hoover. Against Santiago Casilla, at least right now. 0-2.
Yeah, the ground ball double play is really not much of J.J. Hoover's arsenal. He's a fly ball pitcher because he throws mainly 4-seam fastballs, and those are up in the zone. Just like he got the pop-up out of Blanco. It's a lot more likely to see Crawford pop one up than hit one in the dirt. Although now we're coming with a breaking ball down and in. And tough to elevate that one. Actually a tough one to block.
Well, not that we haven't seen a lot of Tucker Barnhart already this year, but you're going to see a lot more of him with Devin Mesoraco being placed on the disabled list today with a torn labrum in his left shoulder. Toward left center field by Crawford. That will add to the Giants' lead. Big RBI night for Crawford, his 4th of the evening. Came in with 6. And it is now 9-6 San Francisco. That run charge to Hayes. Batter now is Kelby Tomlinson. Couple of hits in 4 trips tonight. Billy got a good jump on this ball. He'll get to the spot and haul it in. Boy, Tomlinson's hit the ball hard tonight, hasn't he?
Right on the money.
Now the Giants' backup catcher, Trevor Brown, comes off the bench to bat for Osage. Osage did nice work. Faced 4, retired 4, gets credit for an inning and 2/3 thanks to the double play ball. Brown hitting .267 with 3 home runs, 8 runs batted in. De Jesus, flip to Phillips, force at second there on Crawford. Hoover comes in, holds the Giants to a run. So the Reds come up in the bottom of the 9th, down by 3. For every game with all the info you need. You can get it all at Reds Live here on Fox Sports Ohio. Reds Live pregame presented by Ray St. Clair Roofing. That comes up tomorrow night, second game of this series. Game at 7:10, Reds Live at 6:30. Meanwhile here, Santiago Casilla, owner of 4 saves on the year and 6 save chances, comes on to try to save number 5 against the Reds in the bottom of the 9th.
His last save was a 4-out piece of work. This is an easier attempt here tonight when you have a 3-run lead and the bottom third of the order up.
He saved 38 a year ago. I mean, he used to be the setup man for Sergio Romo. Then they kind of switched spots a couple of years ago.
He also set a career high in number of strikeouts per 9 innings. He's got that over 1 per inning now. And that's the one reason why he flip-flopped with Romo, because he's got that strikeout pitch. Whereas Romo is pretty much a slider machine. Casilla comes after you with some fastballs and splitters.
We talked about Romo earlier. He has not pitched yet this year for the Giants. He's on the DL with an elbow strain. And hoping to get he and Contos back and improve what has been a somewhat beleaguered bullpen this year. Talking about the Giants. Schebler 1 for 3 with a run batted in tonight. His first look at Casilla this year results in a strikeout. Jordan Pacheco has come out on deck. He will bat for Hoover. Barnhart steps in there now. Barnhart a hit, 1 for 3. Tomlinson to his left. And the Giants are not away from their 14th win. That'll be Pacheco. Pacheco hitting .227 on the year. He's been by far the busiest Reds pinch hitter. 3 for 9 coming off the bench. In fact, all his appearances on the recent road trip were in the pinch hitting position. He bats with 2 men out. Again, the Reds have not had but 1 base runner since that 6-run third. Giants pitchers have faced the minimum since then, thanks to the double play ball in the 7th inning. Pacheco can keep it going. Turn the order over. Billy Hamilton is on deck. Reds will see another new Giant pitcher tomorrow night. Their big offseason acquisition from a pitching standpoint were the former Red Cueto and Jeff Samardzija. He's been in a lot of different places, most recently with the White Sox. He'll pitch here tomorrow night against John Moscott. Finale of the series Wednesday is an afternoon game. Dan Straley listed to start against Jake Peavy. Garcia gets it where he wants it. Pacheco called out on strikes, and the Giants win the first game of this series with a final score of 9-6 over the Cincinnati Reds. Take a look at tonight's Volkswagen drive of the game. It came in that 5-run 7th inning by Brandon Crawford. 3-run shot against Drew Hayes. Hayes had just been brought into the game. 3 of the 4 RBIs Crawford picked up in the night came on that ball. A Volkswagen drive of the game. Remind you to stay with us after the break. Reds Live postgame presented by Performance Kings Honda.